Hello and welcome to the Christ Lutheran Church Sermon Podcast. This is Matthew Best. I serve as pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Allison Hill in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for being here. If today's message connects with you and what you're going through, brings you inspiration, or offers connection with God, I ask you to please stay on after the message for just a few moments to learn ways to connect with the congregation and the health ministries that we offer. And now, let's dive into God's Word. Our reading comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 11. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." And when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, she stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. For your sake I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Mary and Martha to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling to you." And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept him from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was laying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he's been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." Then he had said this, He cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The Gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. One of my favorite artists is Tom Petty. Also U2. And they just came out with a whole neat album. But anyway, Tom Petty, one of his sorry, a little diversion there. One of his songs is called "The Waiting," and it has this famous line in it, which is, "The waiting is the hardest part." I almost want to sing it, but I don't want to subject you to that. Because it's true. The waiting is the hardest part. Waiting in a hospital room for news. Waiting for the phone to ring. Waiting for test results. Waiting for things to change. Waiting for God to act. The waiting is the hardest part. John 11 is a story about waiting. It's also a story about mourning, and it's a story about resurrection. But we don't get to skip over the first two in order to rush to resurrection. Jesus receives word that Lazarus is sick, and, Lazarus is not a stranger to Jesus. It's not a casual acquaintance that we have here. This is someone that he loves. We're told this by John. Mary and Martha send word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is ill." And Jesus waits. Just raises the question, how weird is that? John makes it very clear so that we hear it very clearly. He loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus. He loved them. Therefore, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. You imagine calling the pastor? "Hey, I've got this emergency. Can you come by?" "Well, maybe next week." Yeah. It doesn't feel very loving, does it? Feels kind of confusing, sense of absence, like an unanswered prayer. And by the time that Jesus arrives in Bethany, Lazarus has been in the tomb for 4 days. 4 days means it's not reversible. There's no faint pulse or anything like that. It's not denial, it's death. Very clearly. And Bethany is not quiet. It's a house full of mourners. Mary and Martha are doing what in Jewish tradition and Jewish religion calls sitting Shiva. A Shiva is a Jewish mourning practice that lasts 7 days after a burial. The family stays home. They do not go anywhere. They sit low to the ground. Mirrors are covered. There's a appropriate dress for this. The community comes to them. Food is brought. Prayers are said. The grieving family does not go out. Others come in. It's structured grief, communal grief, embodied grief. And yet, if you notice in the story, both of the sisters leave. They go out. They break this tradition to go out to Jesus. Grief disrupts everything, even ritual, even what's supposed to hold you steady. Grief throws everything out of alignment. I can't tell you how many funerals that I have done. Thankfully, I haven't done any funerals here, knock on wood. But I can tell you that I've done a lot of funerals as a pastor. And you carefully plan the liturgy. It's beautiful music is selected, the readings, printed bulletins, all of that. And then there's grieving people. And grieving people are not always composed. I've done funerals where an usher had to step in between 2 family members because a fight was starting in the pews. I don't have to make any of this up. I've done funerals where I called the police in advance because there was a threat of violence. I've done funerals where siblings fought over their mother's remains to the point that one of the siblings refused to bring the remains to church. And we found out 15 minutes before the funeral. And so you adjust. And you turn it into a memorial service. Because what else are you going to do? There's grieving people there. Grief exposes old wounds. It magnifies tension. It makes people irrational. It brings to the surface what has been buried for years. And into that chaos, Jesus walks right in. And then we're given the shortest verse of the Bible. This translation's a little bit longer, but Jesus wept. I love that. It's one of the two places that we get a very human emotion from Jesus, that the folks who put the scriptures together allow Jesus to actually look human. He knows what he's about to do. He knows that resurrection is coming, and yet he still weeps. Is that ever just, wow. Notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't say the cliches. Well, he does one, and then he addresses it and was really clear. He doesn't say, stop crying. He doesn't say, this is all going to work out. He doesn't say, he's in a better place now. He doesn't offer spiritual cliches to paper over the pain. He enters the grief. And this is one of the most important truths in the story. Resurrection is not a rewind button. It's not pretending death did not happen. It's not erasing loss. Lazarus was dead. Mary and Martha were devastated. The community was shattered. And Jesus stands in front of the tomb and weeps. God with us means God with tears. Let's be honest, we're not very good at this. We're not very good at mourning in this society. In our culture, you know the deal. You might get 3 days of bereavement leave. Then you're expected to be back at work, focused, productive, as if nothing happened. Someone very close to you has died, who's been a part of your life and a part of your identity, and you're just supposed to get over it in 3 days. You haven't even begun to process it in 3 days. On top of that, we soften the language. We talk about passing away or loss or gone to a better place. We sanitize death so that we don't have to feel it. We're not just bad at mourning people, we're bad at mourning just about anything. We struggle to mourn lost traditions. We struggle to mourn lost stability. We struggle to mourn the world that we thought we were living in. We want resurrection without grief. We want Easter without Good Friday. We want the cross cleaned up. We want Maundy Thursday without Judas at the table, without the betrayal of the one whose feet Jesus washed and whose hand he filled with bread. Why are we so afraid to mourn? Do we think it makes us look weak? We are weak. We're human. There's nothing wrong with that. God does not call us to have it all together. God doesn't call us to perform strength, and God does not call us to be exceptional. God calls us to be real, to follow, to love. Those things are vulnerable. They require us to lower our shields, to admit that we don't control everything. They require us to admit that some losses can't be fixed. Death confronts us with a truth we resist. You are not God, and you're not in control. It feels like humiliation, and it may feel like collapse, but here's the gospel hidden in that truth. You were never meant to be God. You were meant to be loved. Mourning strips away the illusion that we can hold the world together by sheer will. It humbles us and it makes us tender and it makes us honest. And in that honesty, we're more open to encounter. Notice what happens in the story. Jesus is deeply moved. He's troubled in spirit, and he asks, "Where have you laid him?" And he walks towards the tomb. He does not rush past the pain. Sometimes we feel closest to God in grief because the performance is over. The masks are gone. We're just there, raw and real. Jesus meets us there. There's also waiting in this story. Waiting that feels unbearable. Mary and Martha waited while their brother grew weaker. They waited while Jesus did not show up. They waited through the funeral. They waited in the silence of the tomb. Many of us know that kind of waiting. Waiting for justice, waiting for relief, for stability, for God to move. The waiting is the hardest part. We have a myth in our country that when something runs out, we just expand. We move faster, we push harder, we conquer the next horizon, whatever that is. We tell ourselves that we can outrun loss if we're just strong enough. But death cannot be outrun. Grief cannot be conquered by expansion, and loss does not respond to hustle. Jesus doesn't conquer Bethany's grief with denial. He walks right into it. And here's something else happening in this story. This sign threatens the powerful. After Lazarus comes out of the tomb, there's celebration. You can just imagine that, right? But the authorities begin to plan because they hear about it. They fear that this kind of life, what it'll do to their fragile arrangement with Rome, with the empire. And so they plot to kill Jesus. But not just Jesus. Oh no, that's not good enough. They also plot to kill Lazarus. Because you can't have a raised dead man walking around. It happens right in John 12, very next chapter. Unfortunately, oftentimes that doesn't even show up in the lectionary. Because resurrection destabilizes systems built on control. Life is dangerous to those whose power depends on fear. When life breaks out, those invested in death get nervous. But Jesus is not intimidated by that. He stands before the tomb and prays. He cries out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And Lazarus comes out, still wrapped in grave clothes. Imagine, in some sense, how ridiculous it looks. He's got to be hopping out. His hands and feet are completely bound. Resurrection doesn't erase the fact that he was dead. It does not undo the tears that were shed, and it doesn't pretend the stench was not real. Remember, he's bound. And then Jesus says something we often rush past. Unbind him and let him go. Resurrection is communal work. Jesus calls him out. The community, though, removes what death wrapped around him. And that's good news for us. We can't raise ourselves. We can't control death, but we can help unbind one another. We can sit with each other in grief. We can refuse to rush each other past mourning. We can loosen the grave clothes of shame and fear, isolation and despair. Some of you are mourning someone you love. Some of you are mourning the loss of health, or mourning a dream that has died. And some of you are just tired of waiting. Jesus does not scold your grief. He weeps with you. And he says something that sounds impossible when you're standing at a tomb. This will not end in death. It may go through death. It may sit in darkness longer than you want. And it may feel final. But death does not get the final word. God does. And God's word is life. The one who weeps is also the one who calls us by name. And one day, every tomb will hear that voice. Every grave will give up what it holds. Every waiting will end. Every tear will be answered. And until that day, we wait. We mourn. We love. We unbind one another. Because the same voice that cried outside Bethany still speaks. And when that voice speaks over you, it does not say failure. It doesn't say forgotten. It doesn't say final. It says life. Death does not get the final say. God does. And that word, always, for you, for this church, for this neighborhood, is life. Thanks be to God. Thank you again for listening to the Sermon Podcast. I'm always happy to have a conversation or pray with you. Please reach out either by email to pastor@christharrisburg.org or call me at 717-236-8382. I'd also invite you to be part of worship on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. We're a very diverse, open, affirming, and laid-back congregation. Christ Lutheran Church is located at 124 South 13th Street in Harrisburg. Parking is along the street. You can enter the building through the side entrance on South 13th Street or at the corner of 13th and Thompson Streets. And lastly, check us out on the web. Our website is christharrisburg.org. There you can learn more about and offer your support for the congregation as well as the health ministries and free clinics that we provide to people in need in our neighborhood. I invite you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram also at Christ Lutheran Harrisburg. Thank you. I look forward to connecting with you, and I pray that you have a blessed week.